It's okay to talk, though, isn't it?
Well, there are people here who have joined us. So hello, and thank you for joining us on this ODDtober Monday afternoon. As the description to this video indicated, we are going to be focusing today on the southern flying squirrel. This species has made many an appearance in our live segments since the start of the spring, probably at least a couple of times. But for those of you who are new, this is well. Actually, I'm not gonna spoil all the fun because I'm not a senior educator, but Julia Gregory is. Julia, thank you so much for joining us to illuminate us, a little bit about this wonderful species of mammal that we can find here in our own backyards.
Well, welcome. I'm a sucker for talking about flying squirrels because of all the animal ambassadors here at the aquarium. They are my favorites. Now, I have my favorite snake, but overall, they're my favorites because they're small and they're fast and they're smart, and it's just really hard to resist them because they look so cute, they make your teeth itch. Now, I want to introduce you to this particular squirrel. Her name is Piper, and she's a rehab squirrel who was not releasable. She, her nest tree fell and she was ejected from it when she was tiny and pink and blind. And that happened in the state of Georgia. And she was turned into a wildlife rehabilitator who had to feed her with a T9C pipette. None of her regular animal feeding bottles would work because Piper was so small. So her name comes from, you know, how you silly talk an animal when you're dealing with a baby and trying to coax it to eat. And so Pipette turned into Piper.
Oh, well, that's adorable.
And that's her name. She's not quite 2 years old, and right now she's our star among flying squirrels. We have another who came into the rehabber at the same time and was also deemed non-releasable. Her name is Panama. But I think she has trust issues, and so she is not comfortable being quite as cooperative as Piper is. Currently, Piper is learning to glide from a special platform on a special tree to her handler, so that hopefully one day, if we can find a safe enough situation for both Piper and our guests, we'll be able to fly her for people. That's the thing that people love to see the most. But oddly, but that's right, isn't it, being October? Oddly, that's not really what we're here to talk about today, which is why you're seeing her in her small glass travel enclosure.
That's true. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Today, I'm ready for you because I have a banana and a black light. Now, what do you think I can do with a flying squirrel, a banana, and a black light?
Ooh, should we give people a chance to guess?
Why, certainly.
All right. Well, while we do that, maybe you can talk a little bit about what goes into the process of training Piper and our other flying squirrel.
I'd love to. With any animal, and we've had several different kinds of mammals that we brought to the aquarium to be ambassadors, and the first thing you have to do is gain their trust. And that means I feed you, no strings attached, I'm quiet, I'm slow around you, I give you no reason to be afraid of me. And then as that trust builds, I have a cue for come to me. It might be a tap on a table, it might be the shake of seeds in a cup. Whatever the cue, I begin to feed you when you respond by coming to that sound. Or to a target. I can hold out my hand and ask her to come to me. She's going to spruce up so that she's ready for this. And with these little animals, it's very, very important that we make sure they stay at a healthy weight. We can train them much as bird handlers train raptors, who weigh their bird every day, weigh their bird's food every day, and by working their bird heavy or light, that is, the bird seems heavier than a norm or lighter than a norm, they learn what the target weight is, what the ideal weight is for flying that bird. And then they monitor the bird's weight and the bird's food to keep the bird at flying weight. Well, I'm happy to report that flying squirrels are a little easier than that to get along with, because we may have to pull their weight down to get them motivated enough for the reinforcers that we have for them to train them to do something. But once they're trained, they will work at much, much heavier weights than we had to use to train them. And it's marvelous. Actually, she was working at nearly 78 grams this morning, which is amazing. Our first flying squirrel, who sadly has gone on before us, wouldn't work past 70 grams. And this little girl was flying at 78 this morning. So we're able to let them have more to eat and to get a little extra weight on them and still work. And of course, we like that extra margin of weight because in case they get sick or stressed or hurt, then they have those reserves to help them weather that situation.
Yeah. Julia, I want to make sure that we give people a fair chance, because some people were asking what the two items were one more time.
Banana, blacklight. I know it's little bitty and it looks like a battery, but it's not. It's a blacklight. Trust me, I'm a mother. Banana, blacklight, flying squirrel.
So Connie Arthur, who I'm sure has no association whatsoever with the aquarium and doesn't work with us, says, "Will Piper fly to the banana when you shine the blacklight on it?" And that's not a bad guess.
That's a great guess. That would be a wonderful cue. Where were you when we were starting the training? That would be a really cool thing to do, but not quite.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like anybody else is coming up with any guesses for why we would need both a blacklight and a banana. So just mentally hum the Jeopardy theme song in your head for about 10 seconds, and then I'm going to have Julia go ahead and tell us.
Well, actually, I'm going to work up to it. It might take
Oh, okay.
more than 10 seconds.
All right. Well, you got plenty of time then.
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh the banana. I'm going to put this little platter on the scale, and I've sliced off some of the best bits of the banana I brought down from the food prep area. And I have 4.9 grams of banana. Now, there is no way I'm feeding this squirrel 4.9 grams of banana, because her entire seed ration is 3 to 5 grams, with 3 grams of vegetables and 3 grams of fruit. So that would be a 30% increase in her diet, and she might explode. So we're going to have no exploding flying squirrels today. So,
What does she weigh normally? What is her normal weight?
you know what? She is new enough to us. I know that nearly 2 years sounds like a long time to you, but it takes quite some time to teach husbandry behaviors so that we can take really good care of them. And their habits change over time, too. And she was one it was difficult to get an accurate weight on. And that combined with, during our shutdown for the pandemic, they weren't trained at all. And so we kind of went back to ground zero, that's not really what I want, but back to baseline, and had to start over. They came along quickly after that, but we did have to start over with them, which is all to say we're not really sure what her best working weight is. And that's why we let her get as heavy as she wants to, not really, but heavier than we might have allowed. And then if she just absolutely won't work, then we might bring her down a gram or two and see if that does the trick. But we have a bottom weight below which we will never, ever let her go. And that's 60 grams.
Okay. Well, Keith Stanford says, thanks for not letting her explode. I'll go ahead and second that. I would very much like not to be the one behind a camera capturing that particular
Oh, yeah. We won't go there.
scenario.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this banana because I don't want to open the door of the traveling enclosure, because then she'd come out and go somewhere that maybe wasn't safe. So I'm going, hey, cutie pie, can you wake up? I'm going to momentarily hide her from view because I'm going to spin her box around. And then I am going to push this banana through the screen. Oh, do you remember we did this? What a clever girl. I'm going to put this banana right here. And I'm going to push a little of it through. And then...
This is how we're going to see how bananas and black lights combine.
I'm going to go turn out the light, which is at the other end of the room.
Sharon Lewis says, it's the black light for the fur.
Yes, it is, Sharon. If you can tell us more, that would be lovely.
Well done, Sharon. That was a good guess. Sorry about the light. It'll improve momentarily.
And now we're going to shine the black light on her belly.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
And what color do you see?
Are you asking me? Because I see pink.
Yes, very good. This phenomenon was discovered in 2017 when, oh golly, I can't see my notes in the dark. I think he was a forester. No, he was a forestry professor. Was out at night looking for fluorescing organisms that turn colors in a black light. And he happened to hear a flying squirrel on a bird feeder, and he turned his light, his ultraviolet light, his black light. I'm going to press some more banana through here so that she's not disappointed. And lo and behold, the critter's belly glowed pink. And he told a biologist at a nearby university, and I'll get all those names right for you in a minute when I can look at my notes. And they did a survey. They said, well, that's weird. I wonder if it was just that squirrel, or if all flying squirrels, or if all squirrels have bellies that fluoresce under ultraviolet light. And so they did a survey of museum specimens whose collection dates span 130 years. They looked at 109 flying squirrel skins, preserved skins, and 108 of them fluoresced just like this. Now, because they are scientists, they discovered that there are different zones of fluorescence on the underside of a flying squirrel. And the brightest zones are the belly, which we're seeing low on this squirrel, and the tail, which we can't see at all because it's on the other side of her cork bark log. So those are the two brightest places. And then the chin and the throat and the underside of the patagium, which is folded up against the side of her body.
Now, that's a big word. People might not know what that means, Julia. So what is a patagium?
Are less fluorescent. And the patagium is that flap of skin that extends from the squirrel's front foot to hind foot, one down each side, and catches the air so that they can glide, because flying squirrels are not actually flying, they're actually gliding. Which, if you've seen Toy Story, you know that gliding is actually falling with style. So there is Piper's fluorescing belly.
That is really cool.
And I have mushed a lot of banana through there.
She's having a good day.
She is. We told her it was going to be a good afternoon with you, Casey.
Well, it's always a good afternoon to hang out with a flying squirrel.
So would you like, as one of our volunteers in the Ambassador Collection said, she was leaving work one day. She works on Thursdays. And one of the educators saw her and said, so how are you today? And she said, I'm fantastic. Any day with a possum is a good day.
That's true.
The possum is her favorite animal in the Ambassador group. So how about I flick on the light?
That sounds like a good plan. I'll hold on to the black light. Maybe we can enjoy just a little bit more.
Man, he can work with two hands at once.
Now, that is really cool. I would love to know if any of you have ever seen that before, or if that is a first for you, because it is certainly a first for me to see a fluorescent pink underside to a flying squirrel. Now, did the study in any way explore the reasons for why they would fluoresce.
All right, let me get all my facts straight with my notes, because names and numbers are not my strong point. The forestry professor's name is John Martin, and he teaches and lives in Wisconsin, and it was in Bayfield County, Wisconsin. He was out looking for fungi, lichens, and frogs that fluoresce, because they're some of the commoner organisms to fluoresce, when he ran into the flying squirrel that started all this. And he was working with a woman whose name I will probably butcher, Paula Anish, one of those, at Northland College. And they worked together to do the study. And that's, so as I said, it's the skins that were examined were collected over 130 years in various museums all up and down the range of the flying squirrel, which is from Canada into Mexico and Central America. They looked at males and females. The skins were collected in all seasons, and out of 109, 108 of them fluoresced. So it's probably not diet, and it's probably an intrinsic characteristic of the fur of the animal. And then any thinking person says just what you said, Casey. Why on earth would their undersides glow under ultraviolet light? Well, there are 4 hypotheses that these scientists put forth, Paula and John. First of all, they said that it's adaptive, that is beneficial to the animal for their nocturnal lifestyle. But you have to understand that nocturnal animals don't just come out when it's flat down dark. For one thing, it's never flat down dark anywhere on our planet anymore. And it really never has been, because there's always been starlight and of course moonlight. And in regions where there's regular snowfall for part of the year, ultraviolet light is particularly well reflected off of snow. So these animals have evolved in areas where there is some ultraviolet light at night. And so something about reflecting the ultraviolet light, and that's not right, fluorescing it, because reflection is, it bounces off of you, and it's the same wavelength when it bounces off of you as it was when it hit you. Fluorescing is when something about your body changes the wavelength of the light that hits you. And that's why the color changes from white to pink in this case. And in a minute, I can change something to green if you want me to.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of like magic, isn't it? So it would probably not have evolved if there weren't something beneficial about it to the animal. At least it wouldn't be this consistent over the entire range of the animal.
Now, I have read studies about the other animal you just sneak previewed, us getting the chance to see fluoresce. So I'll be interested to see if they ever come up with a reason for why, a definitive reason for why flying squirrels biofluoresce.
So another hypothesis that the scientists posed is that it's important where there's snow on the landscape at least part of the year, because there is that improved reflection of ultraviolet light. In the case of the snow, it really is reflecting the ultraviolet. It's not fluorescing. And they hypothesize that it's used to communicate amongst squirrels, because their vision is very keen even in the low light, and they seem to be visual creatures. They use calls to communicate, to stay in contact, but when they're close together, they're extremely visual. And the last hypothesis is that it might have a role in anti-predator behavior. So, and how would that work, you might ask? Well, I was fascinated to learn. I love getting to do these things for you, Casey, because I have to do research and I learn stuff on company time. It's the best. I learned that many nocturnal birds of prey fluoresce on their breasts and bellies. So, and some of them are predators of flying squirrels and some are not. So how would that be helpful? Well, it might be a Batesian mimicry thing where if I can fluoresce like my predators, perhaps they won't recognize me as prey.
So other examples of Batesian mimicry that you might be familiar with would be something like the Sinaloan milk snake and the coral snake.
There you go. Faking being dangerous when you're really not. Or the monarch butterfly and the viceroy. Although it turns out the viceroy tastes pretty nasty anyway, and I'm glad I wasn't the entomologist who had to figure that out. So, we have a lovely assistant. Would you be kind enough to turn off the light for us just a sec?
When we mentioned how visual southern flying squirrels are, if you look at her eyes are rather large.
So you can see just a little bit of pink that she's letting show, but mostly she's got it bundled up under her and she's just grooming the edges. But when you look at this fellow over here.
Oh my gosh.
Now, this is not a native scorpion. This is an emperor scorpion from northern Africa. This animal is not alive. He's a pinned specimen, but still he fluoresces green, as most scorpions do. And again, thinking people asked, why is that? What good would it do them to fluoresce in ultraviolet light?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're this small, I know you're thinking this is not necessarily a small scorpion, but compared to the rest of the fauna of northern Africa, it's a pretty small animal. If you're this small and you can't walk terribly far, it's important to be able to recognize a mate when you happen upon one. And so having a mate who sticks out in the light in which you operate, and if you're crepuscular, that is active at dawn and at dusk, apparently there is a fair little amount of ultraviolet light then.
The other study that I read also suggested that it might have something to do with avoidance of predators by being more aware of when you are visible in moonlight. That if you're able to see that your body is standing out, that you are able to maybe stay more undercover. And for instance, in case of a full moon, you would know not to, maybe now's not a good time to leave the rock you're hiding under.
Right. So it's that mate selection and predator avoidance both that is being hypothesized for the squirrel.
Now, we might show people, and I do have a light on the camera, so if I turn on regular light, you can see what it looks like normally. And then, Julie, if you'll turn the black light off, we can kind of show the difference. So this is what it looks like under normal light. This is how stark that difference is under ultraviolet. So I'm going to turn the light back off, and Julie's going to shine the black light on it again. That's incredible. That is just that's
downright odd, Casey.
That is odd, and I was going to say it's bananas, but odd isn't even better.
You don't need a banana for the scorpion.
That's true. Wow, that's cool. Are there any other examples you can think of biofluorescence? I'm throwing you a curveball here.
No, that's fine. First, let's get our light back.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Liv. We appreciate that. The fluorescence of biofluorescence, I personally have no experience, but I have read that, as I mentioned, frogs, lichens, and fungi have probably the corner on the market on fluorescence. But I read that there are reptiles. There are examples of the birds, the raptors with the fluorescing bellies and breasts. Apparently puffins' beaks fluoresce. Who knows what that's good for?
I thought of one. I have thought of one. I knew it was tickling the back of my brain. I knew that we'd recently, those of you who have been watching these, our Facebook Lives in recent weeks and months, will remember that we visited our quarantine room and paid a visit to our swell sharks. And swell sharks and carpet sharks both biofluoresce. And I think it has something to do with the depth at which those sharks live. And because of the nature of how water works, light can penetrate only so far, and as it gets deeper, certain wavelengths will continue to travel and others will not. And they think that at the depth at which those sharks live, that only that certain wavelength of light will penetrate. And under that wavelength of light, because of the way that those sharks have grown and evolved, they can perceive that light better than other wavelengths. And so to them, other swell sharks and carpet sharks glow. That pattern really stands out to them in a way that it doesn't maybe to us or other animals that live at that depth. Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
It is. Good for you. She's what's the word I want? She has written us off. She says we're boring. But I'll bet if I offer a little more banana, we'll be in business. I don't want her to be, hey, you want to come up here and have a little more banana?
Is that enough to get you up on this Monday afternoon?
I appreciate it because I don't want to have to clean it out of this screen all by myself.
She's thinking about it. While she's doing that, I do have a couple of questions that I hate that I've been neglecting from those who have been kind enough to join us on this Facebook Live for our ODDtober series of Facebook Lives. And one of them, I'm trying to scroll back, was how many babies can flying squirrels have?
I believe they can have litters up to 4, but that's uncommon, and they usually have 2 or 3.
Okay. So when Piper was left her nest, she conceivably could have had 1 or 2 litter mates.
Exactly, and it wasn't her idea to leave.
Of course.
It was. I just in case somebody has joined us since we spoke of her origins, she was ejected from a nest hole and ended up with a rehabber in Georgia who raised her from a pink blind squirrel, which is why she's just not releasable, because she doesn't know she's a squirrel.
Well, and that is, I guess, a good segue for us to then talk about, for those who maybe are new to these behind-the-scenes looks at some of our animal ambassadors, just exactly what an animal ambassador is and what they do and why they are serving a pretty important and valuable function here at the aquarium.
Oh, they are every bit as important as any human educator on our staff, and in a lot of cases more effective because they're cooler than we are. Our animal ambassadors come from all kinds of places. Some are purpose-bred to be used in education programs in zoos and aquariums. Some are animals whose species are known to be easily habituated to being handled, and so can be presented in programs and make good ambassador animals. Many of our ambassadors were born here or hatched here. And we keep them in a separate place. They do not live on exhibit because, believe it or not, being an exhibit animal is hard work. Getting accustomed to being looked at by a bunch of humans is hard work. And so we don't ask our animals to do more than one job. So exhibit animals are exhibit animals. And our ambassador animals live apart in a couple of rooms that are quiet, and human access is very carefully controlled. And they're habituated. We work with them on a regular basis, so that they become and remain accustomed to the handling that they need to be effective in programming. And there's nothing like being able to show somebody up close, as you've seen, the animal in question, and perhaps have the animal trained enough to show natural behaviors that you otherwise wouldn't get to see unless you sat up all night with night vision equipment in your yard for night after night and made a study of it. So they are one of our finest colleagues to help us get our job done.
Excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and I think wrap up the stream here by saying, first of all, thank you very much to Piper. And in no smaller measure, thank you very much to you, Julia, for being our guide and erudite host.
It is
to this.
always my pleasure to share the animals with you. I don't know about erudite, but enthusiastic, a different keyword perhaps.
Well, on that note, again, thank you to both of you. Thank you to everyone who has joined us for this ODDtober edition of our Facebook Lives, our Aquarium and Home Facebook Lives. We really appreciate you tuning in, getting a chance to kind of connect you with animals that, as Julia said, you might not even realize that you share your own backyard with, for those of you who live here in the Southeast. But hopefully you learned something new. I certainly did. I'd never seen a flying squirrel glow in the dark before, but that's one I can check off my list. So we will see you again on Wednesday. I cannot remember for the life of me what animal we will be featuring in our next ODDtober Facebook Live, but it will be at 3:30 p.m., just like today. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and have an excellent rest of your Monday afternoon.